The long ago, when people still trusted in the flicker of candlelight more than the ticking of clocks. They spoke of the world in tales. St was passed down as stories. The present made sense only when told aloud. And the future, well, the future waited quietly, listening. And on the coldest nights, when the wind scratched at the shutters, the best place to sit was near the hearth, right beside the storyteller. Picture it now. A night thick with frost and old silence. A crooked little farmhouse with one good chimney and one bad rooster. Inside, a husband and wife, buried under more quilts than decisions. He reaches over in the dark for her hand, but instead grabs a paw. What in God's name? The wife mumbles, half asleep, leave him be. He likes the foot of the bed. Well, I don't. He's breathing like a man with secrets. Then don't listen so hard. Is he snoring? He dreams. He's got places to go. What kind of mutt dreams like that? A loyal one. Silence. Then. You're sure this helps? The herbalist said sleeping north-south can stir the womb. Feels more like it stirs my patience. You want a baby or not? He sighs. I want a warm bed and fewer paws. She chuckles. Then stop marrying women who trust dogs over men. Outside, the wind howled louder. And under the covers, upside down and hopeful, they waited. One night, the wind brought with it a knock at the door. It was the widow from the lane down past the chapel. Move over, will you? I'm stiff as a scarecrow, she muttered, dragging her boots off with a groan. But the farmer's wife hadn't wished for her company. She hadn't wished for talk or warmth or borrowed shawls. She had wished for a child. For what felt like 100 seasons. So long, she couldn't stand to see the lambs tumble out fresh from their mothers. Couldn't bear to hear the hens cluck over new chicks. Even the cats mewling kittens made her turn away, bitter-eyed. She filled the house with tinctures and tokens. Stuffed the pantry with books that smelled of mildew and moonlight. And muttered charms that made the dog nervous. This here's a root broth, she told the widow one evening. You take it with the dawn, and again by starlight. What's it do? It invites life. Opens the gate. The widow sipped it politely, though she clearly preferred gin. The farmer just rubbed his temples. I don't care, the wife whispered into her pillow one night. I'd take a child made of soot or straw. A thing with lopsided eyes and crooked knees. I'd hold it, hush it, call it mine. Now, saying you'd take anything. Well, that's dangerous talk in a world that listens. She would have nursed a child made of bark. Would have sung lullabies to a bundle of moss with a mouth. She would have kissed a creature no cradle should hold. And just then, something in the dark did start listening. One night, the wind brought with it a knock at the door. It was the widow from the lane down past the chapel. Move over, will you? I'm stiff as a scarecrow, she muttered, dragging her boots off with a groan. But the farmer's wife hadn't wished for her company. She hadn't wished for talk or warmth or borrowed shawls. She had wished for a child. For what felt like 100 seasons. So long, she couldn't stand to see the lambs tumble out fresh from their mothers. Couldn't bear to hear the hens cluck over new chicks. Even the cats mewling kittens made her turn away, bitter-eyed. She filled the house with tinctures and tokens. Stuffed the pantry with books that smelled of mildew and moonlight. And muttered charms that made the dog nervous. This here's a root broth, she told the widow one evening. You take it with the dawn, and again by starlight. What's it do? It invites life. Opens the gate. The widow sipped it politely, though she clearly preferred gin. The farmer just rubbed his temples. "I don't care," the wife whispered into her pillow one night. "I'd take a child made of soot or straw. A thing with lopsided eyes and crooked knees. I'd hold it, hush it, call it mine. Now, saying you'd take anything. Well, that's dangerous talk in a world that listens." She would have nursed a child made of bark. Would have sung lullabies to a bundle of moss with a mouth. She would have kissed a creature no cradle should hold. And just then, something in the dark did start listening. Even his cries weren't right. Not soft like a babe's, not sharp like a fox's. But something between a squeal and a song. Thin and whistling, like wind through a kettle spout. "Can't you quiet that wailing?" the farmer would growl, pressing his palms to his temples. But it wasn't the sound that stung him. It was the reminder. Out in the fields, he worked like a beast himself. Chopping, mending, hauling, milking. Sweat pouring like guilt. And all the while, a knot pulled tighter in his chest. Sometimes, rage rose up fast. Sharp and hot like fire under the skin. Other times, the farmer would fall to his knees among the roots. Shoulders heaving, tears soaking into the hay. Days dragged. Weeks folded into months. And the hedgehog boy, well, he grew. And with every inch, he learned. He learned he was different. He learned he was unwanted. He learned what it meant to be stared at. Or worse, ignored. "Oi, snout face. Go eat with the pigs. Stay out the barn, beastie." They called him names. Some cruel, some lazy. But the worst one stuck like burrs. Hall. Not a name. Just a sound to shout at something you couldn't understand. "That's enough," the farmer barked one night. "From now on, eat outside. With the rest of the stock." And Hob didn't argue. He just slipped out through the crooked door. Curled up beside the rooster under the stars. And listened. The rooster didn't mind. He was warm and didn't ask questions. And Hob. He lay there. And he thought. And then he thought more. Until his thinking burrowed deep. And he dreamed of digging a hole. Not just in the ground. But out of the world altogether. He had dug a hollow in the earth with his thoughts alone. And while he lay in it, staring at stars that looked like distant nails hammered into a black roof, his mother paced the floor in silence. And his father wandered the frost-bitten lanes. Heart skewered clean through by guilt and something uglier. At dawn, with mud on his boots and ache in his bones, the farmer returned. And there, curled beside the doorstep like a bundled twig, lay his son. "You wee goblin," the farmer muttered. "I walked the night for you. You'll eat nothing today." "I don't want your food," said the boy softly. "I want you to do some things for me." The farmer blinked. "Things?" "Yes," said the boy. "I want a saddle. Small, strong, fitted for a rooster. A saddle. So I can ride him. You've gone soft in the head. And I want 2 hens, 1 sheep, and a pig." "This is daft." "No," said the boy. "This is leaving." The farmer opened his mouth. But Hob went on. "I know which animals I want. And they know me. They'll come." "Come where?" "Where I'm going. A place that isn't here. A place I can't be hurt. And where I can't hurt anyone either." "When?" As soon as the saddle's done. The farmer huffed. You're talking nonsense. What would your mother say? Hob looked up. His voice was even. She has her own doubts, same as you. But I've lain out here under frost and wind. And I've thought through the night. I thought so hard. I wore a hole in the grass. And now it's all right. And he smiled in that quiet, aching way that only the unwanted ever truly learn. The saddle's ready, said the boy. And this time, the farmer didn't argue. Shame hung off his shoulders like a wet coat. He brought home a saddle stitched by the village's oldest leather worker. Sturdy enough for dreams. He gathered the animals his son had named. A hen with a twisted toe. A sheep with one blind eye. A piglet who snorted like a flute. Pack him a meal, he said to his wife. And she did. Oat bread, apples, a bit of salt. All the while, the hedgehog boy, not quite beast, not quite child, sat on the stoop, quiet as twilight. When it was time, he rose. He kissed his mother on the cheek, hugged his father, whose arms trembled at the touch. And the farmer, in that moment, felt just how fragile a heart could be. Like holding a bird made of sugar. They watched the strange little caravan vanish into the horizon. Rooster proudly strutting. Animals trotting behind like believers. And slowly, slowly, the boy became no more than a speck. His mother felt it first. A small crack deep in her chest. Like a line drawn with a charcoal pencil. Each morning, it widened. Until one day, her heart simply gave way. And she was gone. 20 years passed. A king rode deep into a forest. Chasing something. A stag, a rumor. Or maybe just peace. But he went too far. And then farther still. Lost. And then more lost. He tugged his ear. A royal family habit that only appeared in times of real trouble. And just as panic tightened in his throat, he heard it. A sound. Not one thing, but two. Bitter and sweet. Soft and sharp. Like a lullaby sung through a thorn bush. It started like hello. And ended like goodbye. Tugging his ear like mad. He followed the sound. Through brambles. Past mossy trunks. Until he stepped into a clearing. And saw. In the center of the clearing stood a palace. But not the kind built by brick and gold. It was stranger, finer. Walls of woven reeds. Towers tipped with feathers. Chimneys blooming with ivy smoke. The king blinked, dazed. I'm terribly lost, he stammered. And, rather hungry. Once, long ago, I think I was a king. But now I'm mostly just lost. Then you're welcome, said the host. A creature not quite man, not quite beast. With a voice like wind through nettles. This house opens for wanderers. And my table always has one more chair. So the king sat. And he ate. Greens so green they shimmered. Sweets that wept with syrup. Juices so fresh they stung his teeth. You are too kind, said the king. But the host only smiled. And lifted a battered set of bagpipes. Then came music. Old and new, bitter and sweet. A melody that began like hello. And always, always ended like goodbye. Before the king could say, I'm full or I'm found. His eyes fluttered shut. And he slept. Not just any sleep. But the kind that turns your bones to clouds. and fills your head with dreams you didn't know you needed. When he woke, it was morning. And he wasn't in the palace. He was under a crooked tree. Soft moss beneath him. And a single feather drifting down. He looked up. And there, just beyond the ridge, he saw the edge of his kingdom. His home. And the joy that bubbled up in him. Oh, that joy. He leapt. He twirled. He jiggle-juggled in a dance. Only kings once lost and now found. Ever truly know. But just as his boots kicked the sky, a voice cut through the tale. Wait a minute. I've heard this story before. And you're telling it all wrong. The next part is where the king. Name your reward, said the king. Full-bellied and foolish with gratitude. And the creature, the one with soft quills and sharper thoughts, tilted his head. Give me the first thing that greets you when you return to your kingdom. The king, smiling wide, agreed. For surely of course, the first to greet him would be his faithful hound, Sir Flopbeard Wiggle Whisker Waglutton III. A noble dog. A very lickable dog. And so, with the tip of his bristled head, the hedgehog mounted his rooster, and vanished into forest and fog, calling back, I'll return for what's mine, in a year and a day. But the best laid stories, like the best laid saddles, rarely sit as straight as we hope. Because when the king reached the palace gates, it was not Sir Flopbeard who came bounding first, but his daughter, the princess of sweetness and cherry pie. Hair like spun sugar, eyes like treacle, and heart wide open. Father, she cried, arms outstretched. And the king? Well, his smile dimmed. His arms slackened. But he let her hold him. Behind her, Sir Flopbeard wagged and barked, completely unaware of the mistake. The king exhaled, shrugged, and said nothing. A year and a day passed. In the great hall, fire crackled and bells chimed. And lo! A handsome storyteller arrived at court, summoned to amuse the royal family. But the king wasn't laughing. He'd marked each passing day with ink and dread. Tomorrow, yes, tomorrow, the gravel hog would return. The princess clapped her hands. I'm very good at stories, she said. Does he get thrown in the dungeon? Do we feed him to the royal shrews? What they won't eat, the queen added dryly, we can give to the mice. Help, cried the storyteller. No. No. Put me down. I bruise easily. But before he could be tossed in the pit of inch-by-inch regret, a trumpet sounded. Not a trumpet, in fact. A thunder. Outside the gates, a vast army had gathered. Not soldiers. Not men. But animals. Row upon row of beasts. Strange and loyal and shining. The king's face turned pale. The princess froze. And the storyteller? He smiled. Get off. Get off. Give me some space. The king raised his hands, trying to make room. I want to hear this, he muttered to no one in particular. And then, in the clearing, the air grew heavy with something ancient. The gravel hog stepped forward, eyes gleaming with the weight of a bargain fulfilled. Do you remember me? He asked. The king, standing tall despite his trembling, nodded. I do. A year and a day have passed since we last met. Will you keep your promise? I will, said the king, but there was a note of doubt in his voice. The gravel hog turned his head. "Do you know of me, my lady?" "I do, sir." The princess spoke, stepping forward with grace. "You saved my father, and he owes you his life. Do you know of his promise to me?" The princess swallowed. "He promised you the first thing to greet him upon his return." And the gravel hog nodded. "And what was that?" "Me, sir." "Then I am yours," the hog said, his voice soft as moss. The king looked away, heart clenched. "I want you to be my wife," the gravel hog continued. "I want you to live with me in the forest. I want you to be my princess of sweetness and cherry pie. I want to catch you up and sing to you. I want you to love me." The princess stared, her heart torn. "Do you find me very ugly?" the hog asked, his eyes downcast. "No, sir," she replied quietly. "Not so ugly as going back on a promise." "Good," the hog said, nodding. "Now shift yourselves, there's a royal wedding to be had." The kingdom was in uproar, and yet there was a strange calmness in the air. As if all things had already been decided long ago. "Pardon me," the princess said, voice trembling but firm, "I don't know what I'm sure of anymore." The king, as though awakening from a dream, spoke with a finality that could not be undone. "Well, come on then. Wedding up there, you say?" "It's more like a funeral," the queen muttered darkly. "Good, good, good," the king replied, trying to mask his discomfort. "A wedding it is. And I might even be asked to tell a story or two. Who knows? On days like this, artists come into their own." And so, the people gathered. But the most unhappy wedding party you could ever hope to see. And that night, in her bedchamber, the princess lay awake, terrified of the promises made in shadows. Her thoughts twisted and turned, as the sound of footsteps approached. And there, in the darkness of her heart, she wondered, could love really be born from such a strange, unnatural bargain? Or was this merely a cage of promises? One that would never let her escape? Sweetness and cherry pie. The princess could hardly believe what she'd seen. But as the night crept away, the first glimmers of morning light broke through the window. There, below, among the animals in the quiet rain, a figure moved. She stepped closer to the window, her breath fogging the glass as she peered down. And there, sure enough, a man. His movements were strange. Not like any man she had ever known. Slowly, as if drawn by a force unseen, she found herself reaching for the coat of hair and quills. It was soft. And warm. Remarkable. As if it were something both familiar and foreign at once. The morning light grew stronger. Her dreams melted away like mist. Dreams of waterfalls and ice cream. And there she was, back in her bed. By the embers, the creature had returned. The gravel hog, no, the beast. Once again. Had it all been a dream? A peeling off of skin? Surely, she must have imagined it. But that night, the same scene unfolded. Her husband, standing over her. As she pretended to sleep, she felt his tender touch on her arm. No longer prickly, but smooth. And when he left her, a strange ache filled her heart. She found herself drawn back to the coat. Lying against it, feeling the comfort it offered. It was warm, soft, peaceful. She felt herself drifting into sleep. The fire's warmth lulling her. And though she knew she shouldn't, she couldn't stop herself. The next morning, she woke. But he was gone. Left behind was only his coat of quills. And in the quiet, a question echoed in her mind. Which would you have for a husband? The man? Or the creature? I have a husband, sir, she answered quietly. Her voice both resolute and full of sorrow. And he is what he is, no more and no less. The creature, now standing before her, bowed his head. Then forgive him, madam, if he returns to his skin. For I am but a shadow of what he once was. And the princess, feeling a weight settle in her chest, stared at the coat of quills, as though the answer was waiting there, just beyond her reach. I am enchanted, and cannot leave it. The words hung heavy in the air, soft as a whisper, yet solid as stone. But if you say nothing of this for a third night, the creature had warned, then loyal love will break the spell forever. The princess knew the weight of those words, knew how promises slipped away into shadows, like secrets that wriggled and twisted in your stomach. A secret fish, wriggling, tickling, always there. And so it was. But we all know about promises, don't we? And secrets. What use are they when no one knows about them? They twist and turn, waiting to slip free, to crawl from between your lips. But a mother knows. A mother's eyes are full of wisdom, and all rivers are glass to her. And the queen, her mother, was no exception. That morning, at breakfast, she watched her daughter. She saw the way the princess picked at her food, half-hearted and distant. The way she laughed too loudly and too quickly, as if trying to silence a storm within. Eat, the queen said gently, her voice soft but knowing. You haven't had an appetite for days. No, mother, the princess said quietly. I am not troubled by the creature. The queen's eyes narrowed. No. And yet, for days, you have not slept well, nor eaten well. She took a sip of her tea, watching the princess. Tell me, daughter, what is it that troubles you? The princess hesitated. She couldn't speak of the creature. Not yet. And yet the words rose in her throat, desperate to break free. Mother, please don't speak of him as a creature. Listen, daughter, the queen continued, her voice taking on a quiet, steady wisdom. Last night, your father and I went to see a wise woman. The princess froze. She knows of these creatures. These gruel hogs, the queen said softly, her voice heavy with something deeper. She knows their magic and their curse. The princess blinked, struggling to breathe. I know, the queen continued, her voice gentle but knowing. I knew he must be something like that. Enchanted, yes. But I also know the way to break the spell. The princess looked at her mother, heart pounding. He is enchanted, the queen whispered. Has he told you this? The princess shook her head. No, no, he hasn't. But I knew it. I must have. Does he take off his skin? The princess's eyes widened, her heart beating faster. No, she whispered, shaking her head. He doesn't. The queen took a deep breath, her gaze piercing. The only way to break the spell. She paused, letting the words sink in. The only way is to throw his skin into the fire. The princess stared at her mother, stunned. Cast the skin into the flames, the queen said quietly. And he will be free of the enchantment. The princess blinked again, as though the world had tilted sideways. Could it really be that simple? Could it really be so easy to burn away the thing she had come to care for so deeply? He has told you that night, the third, when everything happens as before. The princess was haunted. Haunted by her mother's advice. Haunted by the terrible choice that had been placed before her. Oh dear, oh dear. She thought as she sat alone. The weight of it all pressing upon her chest. Please, please. And there she sat. The princess of sweetness and cherry pie. Weeping into the fire. For no one to see her. Not even me. She thought and thought. Until her mind seemed to dig a hole in the half-thoughts. Until she knew what she must do. In the quiet of the night. When all others slept. She slipped out of the palace. Alone, her heart both heavy and determined. She went to the blacksmith and took from him a pair of iron shoes. She would walk. She would walk until the world gave her what she needed. Through the nights and the days. She walked and walked. Until the first pair of shoes were worn down to naught. And still she had not seen the gruel hog. So she got another pair of shoes. And began again. She didn't stop. Never pausing. Always hoping. Hoping to hear that music. Both bitter and sweet. The song that began in hello and ended in goodbye. But still, nothing. Her shoes wore out again. And she walked on. Weary and wretched. But still determined. Then one day. Exhausted beyond words. She came upon a stream. And lay down beside it. The cool water whispered softly. As though calling her to rest. To stop for just a moment. And there, in the quiet stillness. She saw something. The first glimpse of something that would change everything. The water's mirror reflected her. And now, her hair was quite white. A stark contrast to the fiery red it once was. And in that moment, she sorrowed not only for her lost hair, but for the man who seemed lost to her as well. Both faded like the memory of a dream. Husband, how did you find me? I've walked the world to find you. She cried. I've worn out the solace of 3 pairs of iron shoes. My hair is no longer red, but still I come. To claim you, to catch you up. To snoodle you, and hug you to bits. And so, the princess who could not keep her promise. Won back her husband. Through sheer determination. By looking, with no hope of finding. And holding on for dear life. In time, her hair grew red again. Like the blooming of a flower in spring. Vibrant and full of life. And there was another wedding. Another celebration. And we were both invited. I told the best story I know. A story which begins in hello. And ends in goodbye. And as a gift, she gave me something precious. A shoe, worn to nothing. A symbol of the journey she had taken. And here it is. When people told themselves their past with stories. Explained their present with stories. Foretold the future with stories. The best place by the fire was always kept. For the storyteller. But what's this? What's the matter now? I don't want you to even look at it. Or speak its name. Because there's a huge thing coming. And when I say huge, I mean bigger than huge. I mean enormous. And I assure you, this is no laughing matter. I'm talking about something beginning with us. And a few very revolting things I won't mention just yet. Black, what are you going on about now? You don't mean this little spider, do you? Hey, come back. Have you killed it? Yes, Promise. Promise. I popped it between my fingers. Come and see. It's quite a mess. Good. Yuck, they're foul. They don't even know the meaning of the word bone. What a noodle you are. Frightened of a little thing? You're frightened of rats, too. Everyone's frightened of rats. They're ratish, that's normal. Why, you seen a rat? You're shivering now, aren't you? It's getting dark. I don't like the dark either. Come here and bark a bit. What should we do until morning? Well, I could tell you the story of the boy who set forth to learn what fear was. You mean he didn't know? No, he wasn't frightened of rats, or bats, or cats, or things beginning with this. No. A rare boy. The second son of the second cousin of my second wife's second niece, who died and left her husband a tailor and 2 sons, the one good, the other good for nothing. He was called Fear Not. Be off with you, you good for nothing. What time do you call this? Don't know, Dad. Well, have you got the buttons? What buttons? The buttons I sent you out for. I completely forgot them. Tell the truth, you stood there and played all along, didn't you? Under my sweetheart's window. Oh, she's a lovely. Did you hear that? He forgot. Never fear, I'll go back and forget again. No, you go, son. I'll go in the morning. The morning's no use. Go now. I would, but the dark comes, and I don't like the forest. It's all shadows, there are trolls in there, and dragons. I don't mind shadows. I never saw a dragon. Be off with you, then. What are you going for? Don't tell me to see dragons. No. Ogres, buttons. Buttons. So off goes Fear Not to fetch the buttons, but the village bullies are watching him, his skip and his gormless grin, just ripe for a ragging. Oh yes, they'll fetch him a fearful fright. Hello. Are you a troll? I am a whittle, only twice as bad. Never mind. I want your bag of buttons. Sorry, they're for my dad. Give them to me, or I'll mutton you. Mutton me? I'll give you a white flock, that doesn't sound very nice. Give me the buttons. So back goes our boy, Fear Not, to his dad's house, full of tales of a whittle, only twice as bad. I'm sorry about the buttons, and did you know a whittle has 3 voices? And the father sets him outside with 40 shillings in a purse, telling him to go off and learn something. Fear Not considers this. He'd always wanted to know how to shudder, the knack of it had eluded him. So, with nothing to guide him but a bag of shillings, a fiddle, and a fool's errand, he sets off. Good day, young man. Now, isn't this a lucky meeting? Good day, sir. I can tell by the gleam in your eye you have a sweetheart. I do, sir. And what's your name? I don't know. Oh well, what's her name? Mine's Mai, but I don't mind it. Mine's Fear Not. And there you go, as me poor mother would say. Have you got a mother? I'm afraid I don't. Ah well, we all had one once, and that's the main thing. Now, your sweetheart, is she dark of hair? Oh, dark, sir, like Arabia. Like Arabia. Ah, a happy day. And a happy day it is for you, young man, for in this bag I have a scarf of silk, direct from the shores of Arabia. Here, I insist you take it. And may you learn a name with it. Thank you, mister. And it's because you're such a fine fellow, I'm only going to ask you to pay me what I paid for it, a double Persian. How much is that? How much you got? 40 shillings. Nothing like that, boy. Half, less than 2, 3. I'd like the scarf, because I've set forth to learn things, you see. And to learn a name is something, but I'll give you all I have if you can teach me what fear is. You'll give me 40 shillings if I can frighten you. Gladly. I see, said the blind man. Let me think, shut your eyes. Is something the matter? No, no. Just give me a minute. What do you reckon that is at your throat? I don't know, sir. A knife, a sharp knife, slit the hair clean. That's marvelous. A slitter of the throat without touching the sides. That's a good knife. It certainly is, and will do for you, young man, unless you part with your bag of shillings. I can't do that. For I must learn what fear is, and I'm not frightened of you, Mr. Ma. You're a friend. Oh no, no, no. We are friends, goodness. I'm sure we are. But let me take you down the lane where I think I can arrange a little case of the shivers for you. Follow me. Where are we going? To a pond by a hedge, by your field, by a mill, by your town. And in that pond is a fearful sight, so fearful, think what fearful is. Add 10, and shall I shudder? No question, if you survive. And off they went, the most fanciful peregrination, until they came to a pond by a hedge, by a field, by a mill, and by a town. As the day ended, they saw folk rushing from the mill, still dusted with flour, who would not stop to speak, but instead shouted, "Be clear before dark falls! Beware the pond!" and other such unwelcoming cries. Is this where I learn to shudder, Mr. My? The trick is, said the old man, you must plunge into the pond, and fear will swim up to greet you. Splendid. Oh, it's a treat. Will you join me? No, thanks. I must retire and get his beds for the night. You must sleep after a good fright. Good luck. Thank you. Now, this green pond was not all cool and welcome, for its waters lay deep, and deep is a terrible thing. It peers up through the green and sees a pair of feet. It is a man. Oh dear, oh dear. So there he is, our man, fear not, dangling his feet in the pond, waiting to shudder, wondering how. When all of a sudden, and who would believe it, the water begins to gather and froth and swirl. Below the surface, a ring of sad beauties appear, eyes closed, melancholic, their movements slow and hypnotic. These are the sisters of the deep, and their dance is a welcome to drowning. Come in, they seem to beckon, as fear not watches, enchanted by their loveliness. And then, of course, he does what he always does when this mood takes him, he steps closer. Now, why do the village folk avoid this pretty scene? Why do men tremble as night falls and the moon gleams its silver on the pool? Because, my dear, my darling, these are the daughters of the terrible thing. Water in their veins, water in their eyes. They have but two tasks, to drown men, and to drown women. Come in, come in. Come in, and sip our bitter beer. Come in and meet our master. Do you know who I am? I don't think so. You're not a wordle, some sort of terrible thing. Exactly. These are my priestesses, they drown men like you and I drown them. Why? At first, give me your bird. It's so beautiful. I can't do that. I have to make you look. Where does the singing come from? The creature beckoned, its voice low and sweet, yet drenched in a strange sorrow. These hills let me try. Hurry, you must learn to play. That's your bird, where does its song come from? The song? Oh, from a faraway island. Which direction? Over there, many lefts and many rights. Island. I'll go that way, you say. That's it, make it sing some more. And so, off went Fear Not, continuing his fiddle playing, drawing the creature's daughters away from the pool, their endless drowning, and heading off in search of Ireland, the island of the song and the bird he must find. And he lives there still, for all I know. What a hero! What a hero! Not one feast, but 28 gifts, 4 offers of marriage, and much playing of the fiddle by morning. Mr. Mackay, self-appointed manager of heroes and historian of Fear Not's exploits, has documented all the details of his whereabouts, of trolls, terrors, dragons, demons, and untold, unsolved mysteries. Thus commissioned, the two companions set off on yet another adventure. It wasn't until late the following afternoon, head still muddled by certain strange occurrences, that Fear Not remembered to tap the tinker's ear, retrieve his 40 shillings, and ask him where they were heading next. Well, I have the route to a fine terror, but I must have my reward. I promised you my shillings when I shudder, but give me only your fist, which I like. Not one little misunderstanding. I'm flash for my pains, compare us, you are blessed with great courage. I am cursed with a little cunning. I cheat for trifles, while you can move mountains. Is that fair, I ask you? I'm sorry. Take my money. I've offended you. No, no, I shall struggle on for nothing. We go to yonder castle, where none survive the night. So I shall learn to shudder at last. Now this castle they approach is a graveyard of hopes. The king driven out, the rooms abandoned. Only fools seek shelter here, for this is a troubled land, and bad luck's caught. Look, there it is, on the horizon a place brooding. Wait here, I should take things with me. Take a sword? Take 2. These 3 things are enough, or not, as the case may be. And they leave 75 of my gifts. Should I not return, do not leave them here, for you know how it is with me. I'll be forced to steal them and desert you. Have a little courage, Mr. My. Godspeed, Fear Not. A lovely, all lovely, a little courage, Mr. My. Hello. There's only half here. Where's the rest of me? That's more like it. Now, how about a game? Why not? I have all night. Yes, all night. Can you play skittles? I'll try. You try, you better had. These are definitely not my legs, too short by half. You better win, precious, or you'll find yourself half the man you were. What size legs are those? I don't know. No gout calls, blisters, foot, brrr. Good, I could do with those. B first, I reckon. 8, not bad, on bed legs. B. Well, precious, careful. We don't want that peg damaged. He won't, sir. Your ball's not smooth enough for me, knight. You cheated. No, sir. I saw a little courage for a little cunning. That's all. Oh, look at me. Very well, my friend, if it doesn't help me with the shuddering. Lovely, all lovely. Fear not, for lack of a fright, settles down for the night. But what's this, Mr. My? Oh, mister, is it all up with you? So cold. You were my first and only friend. My friend is now so cold. Let me warm you a little. That's better. See. Have I not warmed you? Fear not, fear not, fear not. Come nearer. Demon, and I'll cut off your head, and then there'll be 3 parts to Mary. What? I know it's not you. It is me, dead again. Are you? No. Come closer, please. I'm terrified. I came with my little courage to find you, and it's quite used up. How many gifts did I leave? Well, I only counted 74 to begin with, and I ate 2, well, 2.5. But there's still plenty. What's the name of my true love? Well, how can I know? If you don't, then it is you. But of course it's me, and you came in to find me. It's my lot, I try to break the mold and be dyed and I get a knife. Shut up and come here. But hug him, he did. And full of glee, they searched the castle from top to toe. Behind the farthest door of the highest floor, they found a room. And in that room was gold. Such goldness they might have thrown it out of the window for a week and still be swamped. And they shared it, half and half, and a bit for luck. And never have 2 men danced more nor merrier. From a distance, you would have seen the castle shake off its grey drab and sun, though he never learned a shudder. Well, the fact of the matter is that Fear Not asks such questions of the tinker all the way home. Why haven't I learned to shudder? What can I tell my father? And so on. And the tinker pointed to their gold and said, Are there not sufficient riches that you must be frightened as well? And so they went on, Fear Not complaining of fearing not, him muttering, until they arrived at last at the gate of Fear Not's house. We must say goodbye then. You must meet my family. No, families don't like me. Of course they will. You're my friend. You must come in as my dear. All us to say leave them while they want you to stay. No, thank you. What's this for? You must give that to your father. That's right. For I have not learned to shudder. Goodbye, Mr. M. Goodbye, friend. It's you at last. Come. The beggar, with his cloak tattered and shoes worn thin, had been wandering the streets, speaking not in the usual groans of hunger or despair, but in soft, melodious rhythms, as though every word he spoke was part of some tale, some forgotten legend. I had been so caught up in my own despair at the thought of a well gone dry, that I didn't even notice his eyes glinting with something familiar, something I hadn't recognized until it was too late. He'd asked for food, as beggars do, but what he really sought was not a meal, but an opening, a chance to tell a story, one that would spark something in me. You see, it wasn't the hunger that drove him. It was the quest for a listener. And perhaps, just perhaps, he was not so much in need of my food as I was in need of his tale. That night, I had nothing left but a single potato, the last morsel of our supper. And in that moment, I realized that giving it away wasn't foolish. It was an investment in something far more valuable than any meal, an investment in the rebirth of a story. Now, that beggar, that storyteller, he took the potato gratefully and spoke. The best stories are the ones we believe we've lost, but which, in truth, are only waiting to be found. And with that, he turned and disappeared into the night, leaving behind a whisper of tales untold and stories half remembered. As for me, I stood there in the quiet, realizing that I had not given away our supper. I had given away the last thread of a story I hadn't yet discovered. And perhaps that was the most important lesson of all. The beggar had become the keeper of the stories, and I, the one who had forgotten how to listen. But I wasn't lost. Stories never run dry. They only wait for the right time to flow again. And with a little courage and patience, the next story will always find its way back to the fire. As I stood before the king, my belly full and the savory scent of stone soup still lingering in the air, I tried to keep my composure, despite the undeniable joy in my heart from the meal. The cook, now glaring at me like I had committed the gravest of sins, was demanding justice, but I couldn't help but smile at the absurdity of it all. The king, meanwhile, sat upon his throne, his face twisted in confusion and frustration. His eyes narrowed as he looked at me, and I could see that he was struggling to understand what had just transpired in his kitchen. "Explain yourself, beggar," the king commanded, his voice thick with authority. "You come to my palace, you steal my cook's water, and you trick him into making soup from a stone. What kind of foolishness is this?" I bowed, ever the humble beggar. "Your Majesty, it was never my intention to cause harm or mock the fine work of your kitchen. The soup was made with nothing but a stone, water, and a bit of imagination. But in my experience, when you start with nothing and turn it into something, it inspires generosity. People will give more than they ever thought possible, just to see the possibility of a miracle in action. It's a simple trick and idea, really." The stone was just the beginning. The king, intrigued but still somewhat skeptical, leaned forward. "And what, pray tell, does the stone do to make the soup so special?" "I'd say it's the spirit behind it, Your Majesty," I replied. "You see, it's not the stone, the water, or the salt. It's the belief that something can come from nothing. When you show others that even the most modest of beginnings can lead to something extraordinary, they'll offer what they have. Salt, greens, potatoes, meat. A little kindness, a little trust, and the stone, well, it's just the catalyst. People are moved to give when they see the potential for something greater than what they have." The king's brows furrowed. "Is that your answer, beggar? A story of hope and generosity?" "Yes, Your Majesty. Because in times of hunger and need, what's more valuable than a bit of hope, a little belief in the impossible?" The cook, his hands still trembling from anger and exhaustion, stared at me. The tension in the room hung thick, and for a moment, it seemed like nothing would break the silence. Finally, the king spoke again, his tone now softer, though tinged with amusement. "You are an odd one, beggar. But there's something about your words that have struck a chord. Perhaps I've been too focused on wealth and power and not enough on what really matters. The kingdom is rich, yes. But perhaps not in the way it should be." The cook, though still skeptical, was clearly moved by the idea. "It's true," he muttered under his breath, his earlier anger fading away. "I've never thought of it that way. Maybe I've been too focused on keeping the kitchen running perfectly, without thinking of what might happen if I allowed a little creativity." The king, now in deep thought, finally made a decision. "You, beggar, shall stay in my palace for a while. I want to see if your strange ways can bring more than soup to this kingdom. Show me, and show my people, that a little faith in the impossible can go further than gold or riches." And so, I stayed in the palace for a time, teaching the people of the kingdom that there is more to wealth than gold. That it's not about how much you have, but how much you're willing to share. Stone soup became a symbol of generosity, and slowly, the people of the kingdom learned to trust, to give, and to believe in the power of the impossible. And to this day, when I tell this story, I always remember that no matter how hungry or desperate you may be, a little imagination, kindness, and belief can turn even the simplest of things into something extraordinary. To your fate, then. To the whims of dice and luck? Very well, I shall play. But I warn you, my dear friend, the game is not always as it seems, and no one can win forever, especially when it comes to stories and hearts. You see, stories are like dice, thrown into the air, spinning wildly until they land, sometimes landing where you least expect, often in places that change the course of lives. I took the dice in my hand, feeling their weight, considering the consequences. They were smooth and cold, insistent, as if they could make decisions for me. With a deep breath, I tossed them high into the air, watching them spin and tumble like a whirlwind, gleaming with the promise of either fortune or ruin. The dice landed. 2-6s. The same lucky roll I had in the past, but I knew luck could be a cruel mistress. The other man, once full of confidence, now looked to me, his face drained of color. I could see in his eyes that he had realized what the dice meant, not just a win or a loss, but a turning point. He had no more tricks, no more wagers, no more stories. All that was left were the consequences of the gamble. He nodded somberly, and with an air of resignation, he extended a hand. Well, then. You've won again, storyteller. What now? I've lost my fortune, my wager, and perhaps something more. Perhaps, yes, I replied, my voice soft but steady. But the game's not over yet, my friend. You see, winning and losing aren't as simple as they seem. Sometimes, it's about the stories we carry and what we choose to do with them. The air between us was heavy with unspoken words, and for a long moment, we simply stood in silence, the golden dice still lying on the table between us. Finally, the man spoke again, his voice quieter than before. Then what will you do with your winnings, storyteller? I glanced down at the gold pieces scattered before me. The weight of them was both a blessing and a curse. But something inside me stirred a realization that the true treasure wasn't in the gold, but in the stories I still had to tell, the adventures still to unfold. With a small smile, I gathered the gold, tucking it away for later. I think it's time to return the favor, my friend. Stories are meant to be shared, after all. I've told you many, and now it's your turn. Perhaps you'll find the stories you need in the most unexpected of places. And with that, I turned, ready to embark on the next chapter of my journey, one that would be full of new tales, new lessons, and new people to meet. Because in the end, the greatest fortune was the stories we told, the stories that lived on long after the gold had been spent or lost. As for the man who had come to wager his fortune, he stood there, pondering, wondering if he had truly lost everything, or if he had just stumbled upon something far more valuable than he could have ever imagined. And the beggar, with all his tricks and games, stood there for a moment, holding the king's attention by his very audacity. There was no turning back now. The room was alive with whispers, every eye watching, waiting for the next move. What is this? The king boomed, his voice shaking the air. A beggar, a fool, thinking to entertain me with this nonsense? Do you take me for a fool? The beggar, though trembling inside, stood tall. No, your majesty. I am but a humble servant, a man of strange skills. And I am not alone, as you see. He stretched his hand towards me. Yes, me, the flea, still clinging to his sleeve. I was a mere speck in the vastness of the court, unnoticed by most, but I could feel the eyes of the room upon me. It was as if the world had shifted and, in that fleeting moment, I was the only one who could see the absurdity of it all. You see, the beggar continued, there is a story behind every corner, and sometimes the smallest things like a flea, or a story can change the fate of a kingdom. The king, curious despite himself, raised an eyebrow. A flea? What are you talking about? If this is some trick, it shall be your last. The beggar smirked, knowing his moment was fleeting but perhaps enough to show his worth. Indeed, your majesty. A flea, yes. But this is not just any flea. This flea has a tale to tell, a tale that could make your kingdom laugh or weep, but most certainly, it will entertain. And so, the beggar began his story. He spoke of a kingdom lost to time, a kingdom where every night a man would come to the court to spin a tale. Only this man, a storyteller of great renown, had fallen silent. His words were stolen, lost to the winds, and now he had returned to tell the final story that would seal his fate. The storyteller, the beggar said, was none other than a fool, like me. And in his last tale, he told of a beggar who came to court, who, with nothing but his wits and a humble flea, turned the world upside down. The court was silent. The king, puzzled but intrigued, leaned forward. And what happened next? He asked, his curiosity piqued. The beggar grinned, knowing he had the king's attention. Well, your majesty, the beggar won. Not with gold, not with tricks, but with a simple thing, something that, like a flea, burrows deep inside the heart. A story. The room waited, breath held, and in that moment, yes, the flea became the symbol of the beggar's cleverness, the instrument that would bring the end to his trial and perhaps, a twist of fate for all. The king, once furious, now looked thoughtful. A story, he muttered. Perhaps you're not just a ragbag after all. Perhaps, there's a lesson in this. With a final glance at the beggar, the king waved his hand dismissively. You have your story? Now, go. And so the beggar, with a sly wink, turned to leave, the golden crown still glinting on his finger. As he walked away, I could feel the tiny pulse of my existence, a flea in the midst of grand stories, an unexpected hero of sorts. But just before he exited, he called over his shoulder, "Don't forget, your majesty, every story has its fleas." And with that, he was gone. As for me, I remained a tiny witness to the absurdity of life, the way a single, seemingly insignificant moment could shift the course of everything. A flea, indeed. Piece of gold or a story waiting inside, ready to unfold. And sometimes, like in this tale, the luck doesn't come in the form of riches or fate, but in the simplicity of a story itself, something that shapes the past and whispers into the future. The kingdom, once filled with silent expectations, now reverberated with the laughter of a new king. His heart, lightened by the beggar's tricks and the story he had shared, ruled with kindness, knowing well that stories have a power beyond measure. They change people, change minds, and sometimes, they change the very course of a kingdom's history. The queen, once under the beggar's spell, returned not as a prisoner but as a partner, her red hair now a symbol of the bond they had shared through trials and magic. The cook, though reduced to humble beginnings after his failed oil, found a new role in the kingdom, making soup not from stones but from kindness and scraps, as the once royal banquet table turned to feed all who had need. And the storyteller, with his wealth of tales and heart full of memories, stood at the fire, telling and weaving and laughing, knowing that in the end, the best story was the one he had lived. A story of love, laughter, loss, and luck. As for the rest of the world, those who wandered, lost, and searching, well, their stories were still being told, still unfolding in the pages of time, waiting for someone, somewhere, to remember them. And if ever you find yourself in a quiet room, near a fire, with the soft crackle of logs burning and the warmth of a good story in the air, you'll know that those moments, too, are stories in themselves. The best kind of stories, really. Just as it's told in this one, the man who set out to learn fear, but found love. The beggar who had nothing but gave everything. And the storyteller who, in the end, gave the best gift of all, a story. The cruel king, pleased with his plot, thought nothing more of it as the baby was whisked away. The child, wrapped in the bitter cold winds of the north, was cast into the wilderness, as the prophecy of a king in the making seemed to him a threat to his reign. Little did he know, the cold was no match for the luck that lived within the child, for he was not just born with luck, he was luck. The snow had barely settled before the child's cries were heard by a passing traveler. A man, rough from a life spent wandering, heard the desperate sound as he trudged through the snow. He paused, and with great care, he pulled the child from the frosty cradle of ice and snow, wrapping him in his coat, murmuring gentle words. "Don't worry, little one," he whispered. "Fate may have cast you aside, but I won't. No one casts away a child blessed with luck." And so, the child lived, though he knew not of the prophecy that hung over him like a shadow. The traveler, a quiet man with simple hands but a wise heart, took him in, raising the child as his own, far from the kingdom's reach. He fed him, clothed him, and cared for him with kindness that no monarch could rival. Years passed, and the boy grew strong in spirit, strong in heart. His luck seemed endless. Animals followed him, birds perched on his shoulders, and cats, always finicky in their affections, lay at his feet as if he were their king. His laughter was like sunlight in the darkest of places, and wherever he went, he spread joy. But the king, despite his callousness, could never quite shake the prophecy. His greed gnawed at him, and his need to destroy anything that threatened his crown festered. The evil chancellor whispered in his ear, spurring him on, urging him to seek out the boy and crush him before the prophecy could come true. Thus, the king set off once more, this time with his beast the griffin, a terrifying creature whose claws could tear through stone, on his heels. They journeyed far, determined to end the boy's life. But as they approached the boy's humble home, the griffin faltered. It had been a long time since it had been in the presence of such pure, untainted luck. It hesitated, sensing something beyond its monstrous nature, something it could not grasp. The king, sensing the delay, raged in frustration, but even his fury couldn't shake the aura of good fortune surrounding the boy. When they finally reached the boy, standing in the sunlight with a smile that could warm the coldest heart, the griffin lowered its head. The king stood in silence, the prophecy now ringing loud in his ears. The boy, ever oblivious to the chaos around him, simply smiled at the king. "Are you lost, sir?" the boy asked. The king, torn between his desire for power and the overwhelming force of luck before him, felt a strange thing stir within him, fear. The beast beside him growled softly, and the king found his voice at last. "I am not lost," the king said with false bravado. "But you, child, will be. Your luck ends here." But as he lunged toward the boy, something magical happened. The griffin, too, felt the boy's luck. With a mighty roar, the creature turned on its master, the king, knocking him to the ground. The beast, once loyal to the king, now turned its allegiance to the boy. The king, defeated not by strength but by fate itself, was left lying in the snow, his crown toppled beside him. And the boy, with a simple smile, helped the griffin to its feet, patting its head gently. "You needn't fight for me," the boy said softly. I never sought to be king. I only sought to live and to be kind. And from that day forward, the kingdom was ruled not by the cruel king, but by the boy, the luck child, whose heart was as pure as his fortune. The prophecy, once feared, had come to pass, not with bloodshed and cruelty, but with kindness and a willingness to let fate unfold naturally. The boy, now king, ruled wisely, with his faithful griffin by his side, and with luck, light, and love as his guiding principles. The kingdom thrived under his reign, and stories of the boy with the luck of the world spread far and wide, teaching all who heard them that sometimes, the greatest gifts come not from wealth or power, but from the simple, unshakable light within a person. And though the king was gone, his cruelty forgotten, his name lived on in the whispers of those who spoke of the luck child who became a king not because of his luck, but because of the goodness he carried within him. Child, the one foretold to rise above the rest, the one who would bring an end to the king's cruel reign. The king's mind raced with the possibilities as the royal messenger left to deliver the letter, his heart swelling with anticipation. The prophecy, the very thing that had haunted him for years, now seemed within reach. If this boy, this lucky boy, could be taken under his wing, perhaps the prophecy could be turned to his favor. He would raise the boy, groom him to be the perfect heir, and when the time was right, he would crown him as his successor only to keep the throne for himself. The boy, known simply as Lucky in the village, was unaware of the royal intrigue swirling around him. He had spent his life tending to the fields, caring for animals, and living a simple, humble existence. But all the while, people whispered about his strange, unexplainable good fortune. Every time he set out to do something, it turned out perfectly, whether it was harvesting crops, fixing a broken fence, or finding lost items. The villagers marveled at how things always seemed to fall into place for him, even though he was no different from anyone else. Then, one fateful day, he was summoned to the palace. The king, having heard of his good luck, wanted to bring him into the royal court. With little more than a small bag of belongings and his innocent optimism, Lucky made his way to the palace, unaware of the ambitions and schemes that awaited him there. Upon his arrival, the king greeted him with open arms, cloaking him in fine garments and promising him a life of luxury and comfort. Lucky, ever the humble boy, accepted the king's hospitality with gratitude, unaware of the king's ulterior motives. He was given a room in the royal palace, and soon, his reputation spread throughout the kingdom as the lucky boy who seemed to bring fortune wherever he went. The king kept a watchful eye on him, ensuring that the boy never left his sight. He introduced him to courtiers, nobles, and advisors, all of whom marveled at his charm and unearthly good fortune. Yet, despite the praise, Lucky remained grounded, always remembering the simple life he had left behind in the village. Years passed, and the king's plans began to take shape. He knew that, eventually, Lucky would grow into a man, and if the prophecy were to hold true, he would become the rightful ruler. But the king's heart grew colder with each passing day. The more he saw Lucky's natural charisma and influence, the more he feared that the boy's luck might one day eclipse his own. But Lucky, for all his good fortune, never had any desire to claim the throne. He was content with his simple life in the palace, surrounded by his friends and those who admired him for his kindness and sincerity. He had no need for power, for he understood that true happiness did not come from crowns or riches, but from the love and respect of those around him. The king, however, could not bear the thought of relinquishing his power, and so, he began to weave a more sinister plot. As Lucky grew older, the king became more obsessed with his own fate, watching the boy closely, waiting for the day when he would be forced to make his move. One day, as fate would have it, the king invited Lucky to a grand feast at the palace. The table was laden with food, and the courtiers sang songs of praise, but the king's mind was elsewhere. He watched Lucky, his bright eyes shining with innocence and hope, as he conversed with the other nobles. The king's heart raced, knowing that this boy, this lucky boy, would one day be his downfall if he didn't act quickly. "Do you know," the king said, his voice suddenly cold, "that the prophecy foretold that you would be king one day?" Lucky paused, looking up at the king, surprised. "I never sought to be king, your majesty," he replied, his voice sincere. "I only seek to live a simple life, to help those around me." The king, unable to mask the bitterness in his voice, laughed hollowly. "Ah, but fate has a way of making its own plans, doesn't it? You were born with the luck of kings. It's only natural that you should rise to the throne." Lucky's brow furrowed slightly, but he said nothing. He was too humble to understand the weight of the king's words. He was simply living his life, unaware of the king's growing paranoia. But that night, as Lucky lay in his bed, a cold chill ran down his spine. Something was wrong, he could feel it. And as he closed his eyes to sleep, a whispering voice seemed to echo in his mind, a voice that spoke of destiny, of thrones, and of choices yet to be made. The next morning, the king summoned Lucky to his chambers, a decision looming in the air. Lucky could feel the weight of it, though he could not yet grasp its meaning. He entered the room, his heart pounding with uncertainty. "You will have a choice, Lucky," the king said, his eyes gleaming with both malice and desperation. "You can accept your fate, rise to the throne, and become the ruler this kingdom needs, or you can live a simple life, and let me continue to reign." Lucky stood still, his mind racing. He had never wanted power, never sought to rule. He had always believed that the best way to lead was by example, by kindness, not by force. But the king, with his twisted ambition, was willing to do anything to ensure his own survival, even if it meant sacrificing the very boy he had once considered his successor. The moment of truth had arrived, and the choice was Lucky's. Would he claim the crown, or would he choose the life of humility that had always called to him? Thinks to himself, "I am clever. I have thwarted the prophecy, escaped death, and defeated the cruel king's orders. The throne will never be mine." But as the wheels of fate turn, the king's cruel plans begin to unravel. Lucky, unaware of the plot still brewing in the shadows, strides confidently into the royal court. The princess, her eyes wide with awe, watches him closely, a connection sparking between them. The queen, having read and reread the letter with disbelief, now begins to suspect that something is wrong. "Your Majesty," the queen says softly, her voice trembling with uncertainty, "this letter is not from the king. It's been forged." Lucky's heart stops for a moment, but the princess, whose heart has already begun to flutter with feelings for him, stands up suddenly, shaking her head in disbelief. "It can't be," she exclaims, her face pale. "This cannot be true. He's not a man of death. He's the one the prophecy foretold." The court falls into a stunned silence, as everyone seems to grasp the weight of her words. The queen, however, is still skeptical. She stands from her throne and steps towards Lucky, her eyes searching his face. "But if the letter is a lie, then how did you survive the journey? How did you make it past the poisoner's trap?" Lucky, his mind racing, thinks back to the robber's cave where the cook who turned out to be both a poisoner and a forger had saved him by writing the false letter. It was a gamble, but one that had paid off. "I don't know how," Lucky says quietly, but I can assure you that I had no part in this deception. The only thing I know is that I have been spared from a cruel death by some force. And I am grateful for it. I never wanted this power, this crown. The princess, still enthralled by the boy who seemed to possess more than just luck, steps forward. But you are the one, Lucky. You are the one the prophecy spoke of. The one who will be king. I see it in your eyes. At that moment, the doors to the throne room burst open, and the evil chancellor storms in, furious. His face is twisted in anger, his eyes burning with the desire for power. You dare come here, he shouts, his voice echoing through the hall. After everything the king has done to ensure that you, a peasant, would never take his throne? You think that you, with your luck, can change the fate of the kingdom? Lucky, standing at the center of the room with the princess by his side, meets the chancellor's gaze with a calmness that surprises everyone. I don't seek the throne, he says, his voice steady, but if it is my destiny, I will not shy away from it. I will not be the instrument of cruelty or deceit. If the throne is meant for me, then I will use it for good. The chancellor scoffs, stepping forward with a sneer. Good. Ha! What do you know of ruling? You've only just arrived at the palace. You are nothing more than a lucky fool, and your fate has already been sealed. But Lucky, whose luck had proven time and time again to be more than mere chance, stands firm. You may have forged letters and schemed in the shadows, he says, but no matter what you do, the truth will always come to light. The queen, now realizing that she has been caught in the chancellor's webs of deceit, finally speaks. Enough. If the prophecy says this boy will be king, then I will not stand in his way. But I will not let him inherit this throne through cruelty or violence. The princess, her heart swelling with admiration for Lucky, steps forward and places her hand on his arm. I believe in you, Lucky. We will rule together, and we will bring peace to the kingdom. The evil chancellor, unable to bear the weight of his defeat, stumbles backward. You will regret this, all of you, he hisses, before turning and fleeing the court, his plans shattered. And so, Lucky, though born of humble beginnings, was crowned king. But unlike the cruel king who had ruled before him, Lucky's reign was marked by kindness, justice, and a deep love for his people. The prophecy had come true, but it was not fulfilled through violence or ambition, it was fulfilled through grace and humility. As for the king, he faded into the annals of history, remembered only for his fear of a prophecy he could not control. The people, however, spoke of the luck child of his journey, his courage, and his love for the people of the kingdom. And in the end, the true meaning of the prophecy became clear. It was not the luck that made him king, but his heart, which had always been pure. The luck child's heart beats fast as he stands at the edge of the desolate lake. The land around him is barren, with nothing but dry earth and the sound of wind whispering over the cracks in the land. The distant roar of the griffin can be heard faintly, a reminder of the task that lies ahead. As he looks out across the lifeless water, a figure slowly emerges from the mist. It's the ferryman, an old man with a weathered face, his eyes deep with knowledge of the land's many secrets. Will you take me across? The luck child asks, his voice steady but tinged with uncertainty. The ferryman gazes at him for a long moment, his eyes scanning the boy before answering. I will take you. But you must understand, the griffin is not an easy creature to deal with. It has destroyed many who sought its golden feather. I know, the luck child says. But I must do it. It's the only way to save my people. The ferryman nods, stepping aside to allow the boy to board the small boat. As they cross the dark, silent lake, the luck child feels a strange calm wash over him. Despite the peril that lies ahead, he knows deep down that he is not alone. Something, or someone, is watching over him. Good night. They reach the opposite shore, where a dense forest of twisted trees looms, the air thick with a sense of foreboding. The ferryman turns to him one last time before disappearing into the mist. Remember, boy, he calls, the griffin does not give up its feather easily. But if your heart is true, you may find what you seek. The luck child steps onto the shore, his path now clear. He takes a deep breath, knowing that the journey ahead will be dangerous. But with each step, he feels the weight of his destiny pressing upon him, and the knowledge that he must confront the monster that awaits him. And so, the story continues, as the luck child marches toward the griffin's lair, unsure of what lies ahead, but determined to fulfill the prophecy and claim the golden feather. And so, dear listener, the journey of the luck child continues, filled with danger, hope, and destiny yet to be fulfilled. But for now, this chapter has come to its end. Thank you for listening to this tale. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to subscribe, like, and share it with others who might also love a good story. Until next time, may your dreams be as adventurous as the luck child's journey.